the ocean with other interests through areas that are designated for purposes other than the extraction of wildlife. And to put on the economic balance sheet the reality that this is I guess it's the only segment of human population now that relies on free goods, if you will. It's a hunter-gatherer part of society, that what fishermen take, fishermen don't plant. And what they take, if it belongs to anyone, it belongs to everyone. It doesn't actually belong to the fishermen, and yet the ocean is treated by fishermen as if it is kind of theirs to take. The question is, knowing what we now know at this point in history, the values of the ocean as the systems that drive the way the world works, generating most of the oxygen that we require, a sink for carbon dioxide, the whole range of things that we heard repeatedly in this conference. And this narrow lens through which the fishing industry looks at the ocean as a place to take wildlife for market purposes or for feeding their families or communities. Largely the problems seem not so much directed to feeding communities and families anymore. It's this large-scale industrial extraction of ocean wildlife that has caused, in the last 50 years, the rapid depletion of not using techniques that were around 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago, but the new technologies that are now celebrated as the means to find every fish, to catch them, and to market them on the other side of the world. That's the reality of today. Balance that against the other needs, or other uses, if you will, of the ocean. It isn't, perhaps it is. I mean, a lot of conversations at this conference have really been directed about the ocean as a source of what we can extract from it. But I really would like to have comments from members of this panel on your willingness to give up some of the ocean. Presently, a tiny fraction of 1% is deliberately regarded as safe havens for fish and other wildlife. And Steve McCormick, you of all people, certainly should respect and know the value of nature for its own sake, for services that go beyond, like board feet of lumber from a forest.
Stephen, could we ask Stephen to respond?
99+% of the ocean is open for fishing.
Okay, well, let's ask Stephen to respond to that. I mean, in a sense, the broad, multifaceted uses of the oceans and the need to keep it intact in a broad sense. How does industrial fishing fit into that picture, if at all? And should we be eating fish? You see, we had this conversation in the last session. But Stephen, you want to have a word?
What I find so inspiring and hopeful about this summit is that my experience is the first time that we, in my experience, have brought together a full spectrum of interests around the oceans. Sylvia, I've been going to conservation summits for 30 years, and I've been hearing the same argument for 30 years. And I haven't seen the results that suggest to me that we will ever get to scale with the assertion that it's an all or nothing approach. And in light of the fact that we will surpass 9 billion people, they will have the need for protein, that it is a conceit for us. I'm steeped in the protection and sort of fortress philosophy of conservation, but I've shifted my thinking. It is a conceit for us to suggest to those in the world who are barely surviving because of lack of protein that we should have them be driven as much by a desire for the intangible, the hard-to-value elements of biological diversity. I get it. I understand it. I believe it and I support it. But if